if you are an introvert, for example, and you resonate with your traits, so a great listener, introspective, calm, enjoy writing, enjoy deep relationships, all that, then lead that way. Lead with those traits. So in other words, leveraging your unique strength, and that's how you lead. So, and many leaders and people I've worked with in corporate or not corporate, they're leading that way. And I'm seeing actually a trend going that people are more moving into that type of leadership, regardless of the personality type.
Hello, and welcome to episode 127 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review. That would mean a lot to me. Tell a friend about the podcast. Help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Faris Khalifeh is an international leadership coach, consultant, and facilitator with over 10 years of experience working with clients from different industries, ranging from startups to Fortune 100 companies. His corporate background has given him a unique perspective on life coaching, leadership, and training. Faris has coached more than 1,000 leaders globally across many industries. His passion for coaching is visible through his work, including teaching, mentoring, consulting, and community development, and serving on boards, including the International Coaching Federation. Faris is also a keynote speaker and has given speeches at many international events alongside well-recognized thought leaders such as Bob Berg, Selena Caesar Chavin, and Dory Clark. Prior to becoming a coach, Faris spent 10 years in the workplace, having held senior roles in management and leadership. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Faris. It's so good to have you on today.
Wow, I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you call yourself a quiet leadership coach, and we're going to get into that. But before that, I always like to know, tell us about yourself and your journey being an introvert and then becoming a coach and a leadership coach for other introverts.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So my story, okay. So I was born in Jordan in the Middle East. I grew up in Dubai. So I moved to Dubai when I was 12 years old, finished school there. And then after college or university, I studied business. And after that, I started working in the advertising world, advertising and marketing. And for 10 years, I spent time in the corporate world or the ad world doing multiple things, but mainly business related, dealing with clients and growing the business and all that. And I was excited in the beginning, and I was passionate about that topic and that industry specifically. And then at some point in my career, I started feeling less and less fulfilled. I know it sounds like a typical story. And then I started reflecting, like, why am I not fulfilled anymore? So that took a while, of course, and going inwards and exploring. And at some point, I realized, okay, what's happening? I started feeling unfulfilled because one, um, that's when I actually started learning about introversion. I realized that I'm operating as an introvert, but operating in an extroverted world, which never crossed my mind. And actually, at that time, during that corporate world experience, I didn't know what's an introvert. So I wasn't even exposed to that. So I think it started maybe with Susan Cain book. That's what started that self-exploration. So I was running, like probably acting unconsciously as an extrovert to fit in. So that took a toll on me. You can imagine. And now, I guess in a bit, we'll talk about introversion and all that. But yeah, not knowing who I am really affected that unfulfillment. And also, I realized I'm very passionate about personal development, which is coaching. So that's what led me to coaching. And then why work with introverts specifically and why quiet leadership is because understanding myself and my personality type was a huge shift to me. So I wanted to help other introverts understand themselves and understand themselves and also embrace who they are. So probably I'm assuming some, maybe similar to your story. Once we find it's not good or bad, it's just a personality trait, and that's how we're wired, nothing to be ashamed of. So I wanted to help people get that because from my experience, there's a misunderstanding and there's also a shame around it. People feel ashamed being introverts and they feel there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not the first to mention Susan Cain's book. I
Yeah.
highly recommend her book Quiet and also her famous TED Talk. And how did you find the book? Like what drew you to it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was a long time ago when I read it. First time I read it, when it was first launched. So I'm not sure when. I think maybe 2012. I'm thinking. So
Yeah,
it was a long time ago, and it wasn't that kind of moments where it was like a big aha moment for me to. Yeah, I felt it was slowly. That was the introduction. Then read more into it. Then so it was a progression of understanding myself. It wasn't like sometimes people read something and suddenly everything shifts.
right.
I'd love to say that, but that was not what happened to me. It was a maybe a continuous journey of 2 years unpacking and understanding. But I love that book, and I love Susan Cain. Actually, I met her. She did a talk here in Vancouver 2 years ago, and the organizers knew that I am a quiet leadership coach, so they assigned me on her table. So we had lunch together during before her talk. So that was great. Yeah, she's awesome. And I told her, of course, about how she was a big influence. I highly recommend people, introverts and extroverts, actually, to read the book and watch the TED Talk. I think she started. I don't know. It's not who she didn't start it, but I think she got the media attention because Jennifer Can Wheeler started talk about this topic and published her books before Susan Cain. But for some reason, Susan Cain TED Talk went wild, and people start getting understanding the personality types.
Yeah, yeah. And there's some other great authors like Jennifer Conweiler and others. Definitely.
Yeah,
That's great that you got to meet her and have lunch
yeah,
with her. That's awesome.
yeah.
What was the part of her message that really
Mm,
changed things
great.
for you?
I would say that there's nothing wrong with me. That's the
Yeah,
message. Introversion is not a bad thing, and understanding it. So it's basically understanding what it really means, because media, which includes TV, I don't know, My Time magazines and books and all that, had a negative um, representation of what an introvert is. It was always presented like the shy person, which shyness and introversion are different. But besides that, always portrayed as the socially awkward, not a communication person, no skills in that regard, hard to make friends, not sociable, not great at sales, marketing, all that negative connotations. And extroverts, on the other hand, were portrayed as that's the right thing to do in order to climb the corporate ladder or even succeed in life. And I fell for it. Like when I worked for 10 years in advertising, without like analyzing it, it just happened, I guess, unconsciously. I thought, all right, in order for me to succeed, I need to be an extrovert and imitate what our other extroverts are doing. So be loud, not in a bad way, but I mean, be loud, think on your feet, um, don't take breaks, go, 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 all that stuff. So that was for the book, and her message was no, that's not accurate. You can be introvert and successful, and you can be extrovert and successful too.
yeah. And likely, if you're going to be an introvert and be successful, you have to understand your gifts. Like you just mentioned, like, you know, extroverts are often better at thinking on their feet. We can think on our feet, but as I think about some different things that I've done and different decisions, a lot of times the best ones have come with time, and it's a gift, and I need to understand that, not always try to come up with something instantly. And sometimes you have to help other people understand that too, like give me some time to think about that. So yeah, it's not good or bad, but we need to understand it so that we can be successful, and also so that our needs are met, so that we come up with the right ways to have that time we need to think or plan or focus or recharge. And those are things that are different for us. And when you don't understand those, you definitely can feel drained. And like sometimes, a lot of times on this show, people say they felt like something was wrong with them, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's super important. That's the first step, understanding the self, and then, then okay, what are the gifts and how can I tap into them, leverage them, and embrace them? And
Exactly.
and you'll be surprised, not you, because you probably know, but yeah, like I was surprised that those gifts, the quiet gifts, are awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next thing. What are your gifts that you've found as an introvert, and maybe something that is not your gift as an introvert, but you've seen in someone that you coach? Because we don't all have the exact same gifts.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I love that. And I was sharing with you earlier before we hit record that on your website you talk about how we have common traits. Doesn't mean every introvert we have the same gifts, same strengths, same experiences. We're human, we're complex, so it's not like one size fits all. But the common ones I find are we're great listeners, which makes sense. Like if we're quiet, then we're listening. So that's a big one, and I feel that's the most common. Second one is reflective and introspective, and that's a powerful trait to have because self-reflection gives you the opportunity to understand yourself and understand others. Time to assess, how am I doing? What are my values? What I'm good at? So that gives you the time to reflect, even on your day. How did the day go? What areas do I need to improve on, or what areas do I need to leverage on? So it gives you that space. And regardless if you're introvert or extrovert, uh, most recent books I've read on leadership and personal development, they talk about how important self-reflection is. So that comes naturally to us, and not to say that extroverts don't reflect. Everyone reflects and everyone listens, but we tend to listen and reflect more and naturally, organically, without putting an effort.
Yeah, I think that's the key
Um,
word. It's very natural for us, and it's a
yeah,
gift, but it comes to us natural. We naturally drift inward and can reflect, and a lot of great things can come from that.
exactly. And I don't know if it wasn't from the book Quiet or other related books talking about how most of the innovation that happened in the world was because someone was sitting by themselves in a room or in a lab or in a cabin, or so usually that, and you get that clarity in reflection. So it's definitely a gift, and the listening is a gift because then you understand others. um you learn more, you're more empathetic, and also that connects to building relationships. When you listen to people appreciate that, and that helps even to create a stronger relationship. So when the myth that introverts don't make friends or not good at relationship building, actually on the contrary, because of the listening we can create deep relationships. So maybe deep and not broad. There's no right or wrong. Some people like to have many friends and stay at a maybe surface level, or you can have, I don't know, 5 friends and you know them deeply, and they know you deeply, etc. So there's no right or wrong, different ways of having relationships. And the third gift, I would say, um, we tend to be better at writing because that gives us the time to take our time to gather our thoughts and put it on paper. So writing, and that's a gift because you can imagine with writing you can do many things. Like yourself, you publish books, you write blogs, you express your thoughts and all that through writing. Not just through writing, through many things, including writing. So that's a great gift. And I would say the fourth one that comes to my mind, the sense of calmness, groundedness, which connects, I find it connects to emotional intelligence. Lately there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence. I see articles on LinkedIn and in the professional world about tapping into the EQ. And I find as introverts, first, so the emotional intelligence part of it is emotional self-awareness. So in my opinion, self-awareness comes from self-leadership and contemplation and introspection. So that's one thing that I feel we do well with the emotional intelligence. And then emotional regulation. We have that sense of calm, and I imagine, and again, there's exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, we tend to be composed and grounded. And that helps in scenarios where people around you are feeling not safe, or there's deadlines, and you know how let's say if we use the example of the corporate world, fast paced deadlines, having someone on the team as an introvert have that sense of calmness, it's contagious and could ground the team. So that's a great gift, I find.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, again, we're all different, but part of my gifts are being analytical and being strategic. And so I always have a backup plan, just and sometimes another backup to that. And so it does help me keep calm because, if this doesn't work out, which could happen, I know what we're going to do next. And, also as a leader, it's important to help people see those backup plans. That could be a hard thing sometimes because somebody might interpret your calmness as not caring, which, is not the case. And so you have to work on that too sometimes.
Great point. I find the way to bridge the gap to talk about it, because extroverts or different personality types, I would say, would see things differently. So like you said, if we're calm, some people might see it as we're, one, maybe not interested, two, what did you say? You said something about calmness.
Yeah, just it could be interpreted as not caring. Often it's a great
Exactly.
thing. It's a great trait. It helps people around you, but it can be misinterpreted.
Exactly. So there are misinterpretations when we don't talk about it openly. So that's why most of the work I do with companies is to bridge that gap. So explain what an introvert is, and then explain what an extrovert is, and what are the traits for each, what are the strength of each. And many times I feel there's like a aha moment in the room, because their assumptions and interpretations were not necessarily true. So let's say an example. Let's say there's an introvert at work, on the team, and they want to go out for drinks after work. And that person, for example, says many times says no to the outing. And that person's saying no because, by knowing what an introvert is and you need to recharge your batteries, by by 5 o'clock, probably the energy is depleted and they want to go and have their alone time to recharge. So when they say no, that could be interpreted as that person is not a team player, doesn't like us, doesn't want to hang out. But that's probably totally the opposite. That person wants to be there and is a team player and all that stuff. So it's a misunderstanding. But once I explain the difference and why that person behaves that way, people totally shift their perspective. So that's why I feel it's important for both personality types to share and talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about gifts and strengths. How do you help people that you coach find their gifts and strengths? What kind of exercises or things do you take them through?
Yeah. What's coming to my mind now, three things. One, once they do the personality assessment, let's say Myers-Briggs, for example, one of the popular personality types, that breaks down the personality and also highlights what are the key strengths. So let's say, in like we were saying now, listening or etc. So that's one way of exploring it. And something to say about personality assessments. I find them as a great catalyst for a conversation. So it's not like they're written in stone and whatever is on the assessment is true. So it's a starting point. But that starting point opens, perspective, and with curiosity, start exploring. Do I relate to this strength that's mentioned in the assessment? If yes, then that's great. You start learning about these strengths. So that's one way. And then you can take a step further. If you want to do another assessment, I like Strength Finder. It really showcase your top five, or there's 30, I guess, but I mean the most basic is top five. So that's another layer of seeing that. And if you don't want to go assessment direction, it's reflection, and the type of questions I ask them. Like, first, I would ask them, what do you think your strengths are? So many would say, I don't know. Usually they start with nothing or something irrelevant. But if I give them the time, okay, think again, take your time, and be okay to celebrate the strength, because some people might see, oh, I'm showing off, I need to be humble, oh, I don't have any strength. But then if you let go, you start thinking of, yeah, okay, what are the strengths? Let's say they're still struggling, then questions like, when were you happiest the most? What was happening? What were you doing? And that usually connects to the person being utilizing their strength. Could be questions like, what's the biggest accomplishments you've done? And what did you do back then that helped you reach there? So these kind of coaching questions help them identify their top five. I'm just saying top five because it's easier to stick to the top five, but of course we'll have more. So that's the three ways usually I start exploring.
Yeah, great. And I like the Myers-Briggs and Gallup strengths as well. I like those too. I'm happy that you said it is those any instruments, those included, they're tools.
Mm.
And you have to validate what it's saying for you because it doesn't some people act like, "Oh, well, here's what it told me I am." It's like, "No, it's helping you like have conversations." A friend of mine recently said, "Oh, I took the Myers-Briggs and I thought I was an extrovert, but I'm really an introvert." And I know this person pretty well, and I'm pretty sure she is an extrovert. Again, nothing wrong either way,
Yeah.
but I'd have to have some more conversation with her and ask her some further questions because, you can answer those questions in a different frame of mind sometimes. So it's really important, like you're saying, to validate it and talk about, what in this is true for me, but it really
Mm.
aids the conversation and the
Mm.
reflection.
Yeah, aids the conversation for sure. Yeah.
And then how important is it to live authentically and how do you help people with that?
Yeah, great question. I know it sounds cliche, like live
Yeah.
authentically, and it's been used a lot, but it is true. Maybe the word, maybe replace it with another word, maybe aligned, whatever it is. But yeah, living with authenticity makes you, I find, makes me at least more confident, more grounded, easier actually, because you don't need to, you just be yourself and that's it. You don't need to pretend something you're not. So how do you reach there? Probably there's many ways, but what comes to my mind and the common ways I help clients with that, one starts with the personality types because maybe that's my focus, and then moves into the strength, then moves into what are your values. That's important, especially for everyone, I would say, but introverts, since we have, let's say, because of our battery life, having values, and we might, because of the battery life, we need to almost be efficient what to focus on and prioritize. So having understanding what you value helps you focus on the right things, I guess. So the values are important, and the why, your purpose, your vision, why you're doing what you're doing. I find these five like questions, the values, the purpose, the percent type, the strength, the starting point. And of course, you can go deeper and deeper into it. You can, it's limitless. It's ongoing and learning process. But usually I start there, and then that probably opens another rabbit hole and all from a self discovery point of view. So the idea, the more you learn about yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more empowered, the more authentic you become, the more confident. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the word alignment too. I think that's the good one.
Mm,
When you're aligned with who you are, just like you described, I think that makes
mm.
all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And aligned to your values as well, because if you're navigating life and saying yes to things that are not aligned, it will take a toll on you, and that probably move into not living authentically, because that could tap into maybe people pleasing or doing things that you don't enjoy. And also I would say reframe and understanding the gifts, because let's say if someone had a negative understanding, being an introvert or being a great listener and not, let's say, a great talker, etc. Um, the minute you embrace it and understand it, the more you're comfortable with your own skin. So you don't have to pretend someone you're not. So that helps with the authenticity as well. To reframe the things you were looking at, maybe programmed by society, that you need to do you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to speak that way. Um, so for example, let's say if I use myself as an example, as a coach or a speaker, I might think, oh, I need to be like Anthony Robbins on stage. And then that's probably impossible. Then I'm going to think, oh, then I can't be on stage. But then when you reframe that, okay, that's one way and one personality, one style. You can also be, the quiet speaker on stage. And that makes a shift when you start saying there's no right or wrong. There's just different people doing it differently.
Yeah, such a great point. And that's so important. And I definitely, before I understood my introversion, I was definitely more shy, had more anxiety, that kind of thing. And now that's completely gone, and I'm very confident, but I'm still gonna think before I speak. It's just always going to be that way. I'm not ever going to talk nonstop, and that's fine. Some people might be expecting that, like, oh, everybody should talk nonstop, but that's never going to be me, and that's so good to know. But I can
Yeah,
be very confident and have very valuable things to say, but I'm not going to be probably talking as much as some other people might be.
exactly. And from my experience, what I started realizing, and maybe that's not a realization, it's obvious, I guess, that people resonate to different people differently. So you won't find like someone that, like for example, let's say some people don't resonate to the talker, for example, or some people, like I met so many people that they say I don't like anti-drugs. I like I don't know why I'm using him as an example, but I mean, so you're never going to satisfy everyone. So you find your tribe. That's what I'm trying to say. People want to work with you regardless, not just as a coach, as an employee, as any person, because of your unique traits and personality and character and the energy you bring. So you don't need to be anyone else. You just be yourself, and you'll find people that want you the way you are and come to you.
Exactly, exactly. I probably wouldn't go to Tony Robbins for coaching. I'd more likely come to you.
Thank you.
um,
I hope he doesn't hear this podcast.
yeah, yeah, right. No, but I mean, he does some great work for many, many people. Just like we're
Exactly.
saying, the style is different, and we can find coaches that resonate with us, and you can get coached by an extrovert. But the thing I think is so important, an extrovert can coach an introvert, but they have to understand introversion. If they don't, their advice may not do any good. It actually could be
Mm,
harmful.
mm,
And so I know that's important. So,
yeah.
but a lot of times we do learn best from other introverts, but it just depends.
Yeah.
Um, I had a gentleman on talking about small talk, and he's a therapist and he's an extrovert, but he really understood introversion. He understood shyness, anxiety, and how all that can interplay. And it was a great conversation and a really popular episode. But he
Wow, I'll
got
check
it.
it out.
He got the introversion piece of it.
It's important, yeah, to have the understanding of different personalities. I find, speaking of this topic, like introvert, extrovert, many extroverts come to me as well. So I find sometimes extroverts, they resonate with the introvert energy, or they want to be better listeners or introspective. So it doesn't mean, I find it doesn't have to be if you're introvert, you resonate, you want to work with an introvert. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yes, yes, absolutely.
any personality wants, or maybe the opposite. Maybe sometimes, depending on the situation, maybe I want to work with an extroverted, let's say, coach for some reason. So it depends on the needs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what are you
But in your
looking for.
case, in your case, you understand extroverted, you understand their personalities and their needs, just like you
Mm,
do introverts. So yeah, that's a
yeah.
great point. So let's get into leadership. What makes a great leader, and how might it look different from an introvert to extrovert? Just the approach.
Yeah, leadership also another loaded word. I find many people don't like it, and sometimes when I start a workshop or a talk, I address that first because many people might already disconnect from the word. And to be honest, I was one of them. Probably 8 years ago, I didn't like the word leadership again because of maybe the society programming and the media. Usually, leader portrayed as a certain characteristic that I didn't resonate with. But then I realized there's plenty of leadership styles. What we're seeing maybe on the main screen is one type. There's like at least 10 common types, not common, 10 different types that are, if I want to use like leadership, let's say books, and from that perspective, there are different styles. There's the servant leadership, there's the conscious leadership, there's many leaders. Some leaders lead from front, some from behind. So yeah, there are plenty, and so I resonate, and also it's not about the title, and it's not about the ranks. That's another misunderstanding. Sometimes people think it's a ranking in the organization. It could be maybe leadership in that context, but leadership overall, the way I see it, it starts with self leadership and understanding the self before you even lead others. And you might not even need to lead others. The core of it, it's a choice, it's an attitude, it's a mindset, and it starts with the self. So for me, almost leadership, I see it as self-leadership and conscious. Like, so for example, a leader is a person that's curious, open, have a growth mindset, doesn't see failure as something to avoid. So all these are traits of a leader. And the opposite of a leader would be the opposite, not curious, close-minded, doesn't want to grow, all that. So that's my take on leadership, as a definition, I mean. I don't know if that was your question. What was the
Uh,
question again? Sorry.
yeah, no, that was great. That was great. So, in leadership, whether it be
Mm,
leadership or leading a team, what are some strategies that might work better for introverts?
yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got it. So yeah. So I was sharing leadership in general, what I meant by it. So now we go specifically to, yeah, to the introvert leadership or quiet leadership. Yeah, again, I'm saying this, I think the same thing, understanding the self, but then walking the talk. So, and embracing your traits. So if you are an introvert, for example, and you resonate with your traits, so a great listener, introspective, calm, enjoy writing, enjoy deep relationships, all that, then lead that way. Lead with those traits. So and so, in other words, leveraging your unique strength, and that's how you lead. So, and many leaders and people I've worked with in corporate or not corporate, they're leading that way. And I'm seeing actually a trend going that people are more moving into that type of leadership, regardless of the personality type, which is more, I want to say empathetic, because it goes with, so empathy, to be empathetic, it's important to be a great listener. So again, goes hand in hand. So people are encouraged in to be a successful leader from what I'm seeing from the books and trends in the market. They're encouraging, great listening, asking questions, use the coach approach, um, um, give space, give space in terms of, so it falls also into the inclusion, because now people talk about inclusive leaders. So being an inclusive leader means also creating that psychological safety in personality types as well. So you're open, you understand there are different personalities. There's not one way, right way to do things. If you're more the quieter person, that's great. If you're more of that person's great. So I'm seeing it, yeah, that openness. And I see that's the quiet leadership, or maybe some people call it conscious leadership. I think we're saying different things, even servant leadership, but more or less it's different words or different titles, but the core of that leadership is the same.
Yeah. So are you finding that people tend to want to have that type of leadership? You're seeing that maybe some of the old stereotypes are being um, changed, and people are really gravitating towards this. Again, not
Yeah.
everybody, but
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot with even big organizations like global and even across Canada, because I work with different companies, not under quiet leadership, under trainer and coach. So I don't go with the agenda of I'm working with the introverts. I'm working
okay,
with all employees,
okay,
and the message from these companies is all the same. How can like help our leaders be more compassionate, empathetic, inclusive, uh, teach them how to listen, how to ask questions, have the coach approach. Also, many of them also provide or ask me to do personality assessments, not just Myers-Briggs, disc profiles, or EQ. And with the same intention, there's no right or wrong. Leverage your strength. So I'm happy to see that. So yeah, there's a trend going that direction, which I don't know, for me makes sense.
yeah, yeah, that's great. And you mentioned also that this can all provide the psychological safety. How do you do that?
So psychological safety for in the corporate setting, for people to feel safe to be themselves. So this means they can be themselves. So for example, I would say in the past, I wasn't in a psychological safe environment because the message there was you need to be extroverted. Maybe they didn't use those exact words, but they use the characteristics of an extrovert. And if you're not, then you don't fit here. So so that's not safe. So I felt that time that yeah, I can't be myself. I can't reveal my real self. And actually, not back then. Even now, I work with leaders. I get super surprised that that's the message they get also there. I worked with few people that were like CEOs of companies, and they said, I don't share with people that I'm an introvert. So they still have that also negative perception. But hopefully now they're coming to me and we're working together. Now they're understanding it. But prior to joining or working on themselves, they've been hiding this all their lives because they think it's not, you can't be an introvert at work. So, so psychological safety as a leader, to be inclusive and be open to all personalities, all gender, all ethnicities, cultures, etc., and help them have a voice. So if they share their thoughts, it's welcomed, and there's no suppression to that.
Yeah, that's so important. And so that is a lot of the work you do, right? With doing workshops and things and bringing awareness to different people's gifts. I mean, what is the best way for organizations to continue to help people understand their strengths and have that psychological safety, whether it be for the leader or for everybody in the organization?
I would say open-mindedness or have the growth mindset. I don't know if that book was great, The Mindset, right? It's called Mindset. I forgot the name of the author. But there's many books talk about the same thing. It's being curious, not judgmental. Um, Try your best not to be biased because um, so how do we do that is by trying our best not to know to understand that it's not my way is the only way. There's many ways, and like you said earlier with the introvert extrovert, there's no right or wrong. And you mentioned on your website, which I like, about being left-handed or right-handed. So if someone is right-handed, you're not going to go tell them, "Oh my God, this is wrong." So having that mindset applied to everything from all aspects. So to be open that it's not my way is the only way, or the way I think about things are the only way how things should be. There are different perspective, different opinions, different experiences. We all come with all different experiences. So I guess if I want to sum it up, it will be curious, not judgmental, and that's it. These two.
Yeah. The left-handed, right-handed thing. I'm right-handed, and I did an exercise when I was doing the Gallup strengths, and they had you write with your right hand or your dominant hand, I should say.
Yeah,
Dominant hand, and your name 5 times, and then they said now switch and write with your non-dominant hand 5 times, and yeah, it did not look good. And again, it's not something I chose. It's just something natural. And that's the whole point is just all these gifts that come to us, use them. If we try to use other gifts, it might not turn out as well. So we don't choose our
exactly.
gifts, but we sure can embrace them.
Yeah, and that brings me to something I find important. Also, not to put ourselves in a box that this is who we are and that's it. We have okay these gifts and those traits. We can if we want to. It's a choice, so it's not you have to. Depending on your needs, you say, okay, I can't when I want to. And I think you also mentioned that in one of your blogs to tap into that. So let's say let's say usually introverts they say, um, I don't like small talk, for example, and I don't too either. However, let's say I'm at a networking event and it happens, I don't know, once every 3 months, and for that day for a client, I need to make small talk. Then also be open to it because we were talking about the growth mindset is being curious and open to possibilities and not be closed off and saying this is my way or that's it. So as that to live that, then to be also open to those possibilities. And as long as you're not doing it by force or you're not doing it all the time, like once in a while, it's okay to tap into that and knowing, okay, I'll go home, recharge, and do my own thing. Because I find sometimes we might go into this victim mindset or the labels. Oh, that's not for me. That's not for me. And that limits our exposure. So sometimes we need to do certain things with small amounts, with and mindfully, not unconsciously, like mindfully.
Yeah, and so I always say you can do anything, but your approach might be different. You
Mm,
know, I also don't love small talk, but I definitely have gotten better at it. Sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I avoid it,
yeah,
but often it's necessary to get to those deeper conversations that we really want to have. But I might think of, like, if I am going into an event, I might think ahead of time, well, what are some things I could talk about, And again, you might talk about other things. You're not limited to that preparation, but you might just think, if I need something to talk about, what's it, something interesting. So, whereas the extrovert might not have to give that any thought at all. So, I think you can do anything, but often it's you do best in your introverted way, but all of that is understanding your introverted way. So, yeah, it's a good point.
exactly. I like that. And also, you can still do, like you said, like kind of small talk, but your own creative way with your twist. So maybe the common one, how's the weather and all that. You could go, I don't know, what's exciting in your life at the moment, or what's the latest book you've read. So you can still do that in your own unique way.
Yeah, yeah. And the other
Mm.
thing too is, the subject of networking and networking events comes up often.
Mm,
And, you know, it's I may I may not get to know everybody, all at once. I may not get to know all 100 people at this event at once, and that's fine. It's okay. Maybe I have a couple really good deep conversations. Maybe it's with a new person, maybe it's with somebody I already know, but I have some deep conversations, and what were my goals, and they don't have to be the same as somebody else's goals.
exactly. Yeah, I say the same thing about networking. You do it your own way. And like you said, it could be one or two people that you spoke to deeply, and that's it. Doesn't It's not about the quantity. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. So, as a leader, and looking at those you lead, how important is it to know how to help or how to lead different personality styles?
It's very important because when everyone taps into their full potential and their gifts, it's a win-win for everyone. So that's the top performing teams are the teams that they all understand themselves and others and know how to complement each other. And that's not just with personality types, could be with skill sets and also with communication styles. People like to be spoken to differently. So if you speak or treat people like the way, usually they say treat people like the way you want to be treated. Actually, I don't think that's accurate. You want to treat people the way they want to be treated. And that's why there's different communication styles, even there's different love languages and etc. to really understand the people you work with so you can meet them halfway and they can also meet you halfway. So, for example, that person needs some time to reflect before coming up with a solution. So you could say as a leader, all right, reflect on our meeting today, and in 2 days let's reconnect. And or that's one, or two, you could say, email me your thoughts, because knowing they're better at writing. So then you're getting the most out of people instead of saying, okay, this is the challenge. Tell me now what's the solution in 10 minutes. So then that person not going to give you the best. So no one is winning here. So when you understand each other, you give each other the space to bring the best in each one of from each. So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. Treat people how they want to be treated or how they should be treated, and it's not going to
Yeah,
look the same. There's not a one size fits all approach.
yeah. And also with the delivery, some people like I don't know if I'm thinking of now of the disc profile. Some people are very structured, and even with the Myers-Briggs, any personality, I guess we all have these things. So if someone's super organized and someone doesn't is creative and abstract, putting them in one room, not understanding each other, might be a conflict. Because the organized person might think the other person is taking it so lightly and they're not focused, and that person's thinking this person's too, rigid. But once you understand it, once they talk about it and embrace it and own it, say, I am this, I am that, how can we work together? That's totally shifts the whole energy and the dynamics at work.
Yeah, yeah, I could tell you lots of stories about that because we need all of our gifts, and
Exactly.
there's benefits to both of those, you know, the the organized person and the more spontaneous person. There's benefits to both.
Mhm.
And so all of this does take time, whether you're a leader or not. And it's just a matter, and it does take time to get to know individuals and their strengths and needs. And so, where does someone start with that?
You mean as like a individual or as a someone that works in a company?
Yeah, someone that works in a company, as you're getting to know people's strengths and needs,
Hmm.
you know.
I would say the most basic, simple way without even investment, like money wise, first having the intention and that you want to do this and you're curious, you want to you want to understand the team and personality type. So it starts there that you have the willingness, and then if you do, there's that personality assessment online called 16 personalities. Probably there are many others, and I think you have one on your website too. So it doesn't matter as long as you maybe as a team or individual start with that. Be curious, play with it, do the assessment, see what comes out. Even the most simple free version online can get you start thinking and saying, oh my god, I didn't know that, that's interesting. So that's one, and then share it with the team. So it could be, sometimes I share with some of my clients that are not ready to invest. I say, do that 16personalities.com free version online. Do it for yourself and the team as a fun activity. You all do it and come talk about it. So come back to the office and block 2 hours or 1 hour. Each person shares what came up and what resonated with them, what didn't resonate, any aha moments, any. I would say that's a good starting point.
Okay. And as you said earlier, and we've probably said throughout this, it's not good or bad. And so if you are doing that with your team, that's so important to emphasize that it's not good or bad. It's just different, and it's a good thing. Because that could be, if one's considered better than another, that could be a problem.
That's a great point. So before doing that exercise, to have that discussion, like there's no right or wrong, and this is just for us to start to getting know each other more. And yeah, and it's important to highlight that, like you said, because even not highlighting it, people might even do the answers differently because they might think, oh, this will lead to an introvert. Let me put the opposite. So then no one is, the whole point is not, to be open and transparent, and there's no right or wrong for sure. So that's part of the psychological safety, that there's no right or wrong. Let's just explore it together and talk about it.
Yeah, that's funny because people might try to manipulate their
Yeah,
answers. And I mean, I know too much. I could come out as an extrovert if I wanted to, because
yeah,
I've done it so many times.
exactly.
And then, how important is it for leaders to find their quiet time,
So depend.
especially introverted leaders?
Yeah. If especially introvert, then it's super important, as you probably know, like the recharge. Actually, that's a game changer. Understanding your battery life and what drains you and what gives you energy. For me, that was the main game changer in my life. So knowing that by itself can shift things drastically, because then you plan your day differently, you plan your week, your life differently. So for me, quiet time, it's part of my life. If I don't have it, I don't know what will happen. It's not good. So I start my day, the first hour of my day, and quiet by myself, having having coffee, journaling, and reading. And probably throughout the day, I'll have mini breaks for sure, and they're blocked on my calendar, so um, it's not negotiable. So these blocks of time, it could be as even as 15 minutes, that can make a huge difference. And then end of the day, I'm gonna have another 1 hour by myself. So anyway, for every person is different. I'm not saying 1 hour is, some people maybe don't have an hour. So even 15 minutes. So you plan your day the way you feel is right for you, as long as you have those quiet spots during the day.
Yeah, and that's important. There's not a formula. I've seen people try to come up with formulas, and I'm the same. The very first part of my day is quiet, and then I kind of look at my week and sometimes plug in sometimes like, oh man, I've got like 4 hours in a row of meetings, and
Mm,
I need a break right after that. And so that's key.
yeah, key, because the reason for that, I'm sharing that for the listeners, is because Because if we operate on low energy, and I think that's can be obvious too, you're not at your peak performance. So you're not as creative, you're not as calm, you're not as efficient. So everything is lower too. So in order for you to thrive, even on a personal level, you want your battery charged like the iPhone and any other device. So the idea, if you optimize your energy, then you can do so much. But not knowing that, because many people, including myself in the past, I didn't know about the battery. So probably I was operating, with low level of energy and battery throughout the day without even knowing. So the
Yeah,
first point is to know your battery and then decide how to optimize it.
absolutely. Ferris, we've talked about a lot of great things. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Is there
Same
anything else you
here.
want to is there anything else you want to add that we haven't talked about yet?
No, it was awesome. I really enjoyed your questions and where this led us. Thank you so much for having me. That was enjoyable.
Absolutely. And of course, where can people find out more about you or connect with you on the work that you do?
Yeah, on my website, it's my name, my first and last name, fariskhalifa.com. And I'm active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Ferris. This has been a lot of fun and very
You're welcome.
informative.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com. Check out the website, quietandstrong.com. I'll add social media channels for me and my guests to the show notes. Please comment on social media posts. Send me topics or guests you'd like to see on the show. There's so many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.